So, excuse me, our agenda today. We have two items that we want to go through with you. With technology going and with communication being a new thing, we want to go continuing enhancements in technology with cell phones. We wanted to go through some cell phone options with you. Some of these you all already in the know. You're going to hear a lot about. You're going to be real familiar with. And then some of them, hopefully, you'll learn a little bit about. And then we're going to be doing a piece on emotional intelligence, as that has been known as one of the leading factors when you're talking to individuals who are looking to hire, why people are getting fired out there, how people are relating with other individuals, and how people are just experiencing their own personal lives. Having that emotional intelligence and being able to work with that is something really, really great. So we're excited that Thrive counselor Jorge Mendoza is with us. And I'll
Good
give
morning,
a little
everyone.
bit more of a bio. And I'll give a little bit more of his bio as we go forward in his piece there, as we get on. So cell phone options. When it comes to financial coaching and when it comes to when we're working with individuals, people are coming in, and as we're working with them, you know, we're talking about expenses. We're talking about income coming in. We're talking about debt. We're talking about how they're doing all those things. One of the interesting things is, regardless where the client is, it seems like almost all of them have some cell phones. People are coming in. They're trying to work. Communication is so important today. And it's funny to think about, you know, if you go back 15 years, 20 years, how people did things without their cell phones. In the world today, they encompass so much. And so, as we know, they can be very expensive. And we want to go through a few options that are out there for our clients, and some really great ways that we can be talking to them about some different things that are available that they can be able to use as we move forward. So cell phone plan types. We're all familiar with these here. There are basically three types of cell phone plans that are available out there. We have the prepaid ones. That's as you pay as you go. There's set minutes. One of the great things about a prepaid plan, as soon as you hit your minutes, as soon as you hit your data limit or anything along those lines, the phone shuts off. Well, this is similar to having a debit card without overdraft protection. It's great because they will not allow you to overdraft. You cannot spend more than you have. At the same time, with a prepaid plan, if it does shut you off right away, that means that you are finished and you can no longer have the communication. And so it's one of those that it's an advantage, but then at the same time, it can be difficult if you find yourself in an emergency situation. You do need to communicate with somebody if you have a prepaid plan that's not there. There are some no contract plans out there. You can control the type of phone you can use. A lot of times that you're not able to use whatever you want to. There can be some lack of features and options. And typically you buy the phone up front. You go forward. There's no contract. You pay a month for what you have. And then it continues on. And so you're on a plan, but there is no contract and you're not locked into it. And then we have contract plans. This can range widely on prices and some coverage and options. And typically with some of the contract plans that we have, that's what we see a lot with a lot of the big four carriers, that even if it's not a contract now with the plan that you're on, a lot of times they try to say, well, as part of the contract in your monthly plan, you'll have the phone. We're going to spend a lot more time looking at some of the prepaid and no contract options. We're not going to talk a lot about Verizon, T-Mobile deals, AT&T, things along those lines. And so we want to go through a few plans with you and some of the new things that are out there. One of the things that we do want to talk about is the Federal Lifeline Assistance. This is a governmental program where it allows anybody to have a phone for free. It provides a free phone. It provides 350 free minutes, unlimited text messages, and a small amount of data at no cost. The good thing is you can add minutes and data if you want to, and there is small cost to that, but there is no cost to what those are on there. One of the important things to realize is that the Federal Lifeline Assistance is the name of a plan. It's not the name of a carrier. SafeLink Wireless and Insurance Wireless, which are have two, their logos are on the top right, are just two of the many carriers that do offer this governmental subsidized plan as we move forward. So this is a governmental program that is supported. They're only allowed one phone per household, but if you have multiple people living in a household, at the same address, but they're different households, they can qualify for multiple lines. And so if you're working with people who are in a transitional housing program, or if they're staying with friends and family, if it's a different household, they can get that there. But you cannot get 3 or 4 of these programs for you, your clients and their kids, the free phones. Qualifications is if you qualify for federal or state eligibility, for example, SNAP or Medicaid or some of those other programs, you do qualify for the program. Most of the time you do have to go through their program. In addition, if you do not qualify or you are not enrolled in one of those federal or state programs, you can also qualify based on income. You must provide proof. You cannot just go there, check a box, say, yes, I'm under this amount of money, and they will give you a phone. So I do want to let you know that this is out here. This is available to any of our clients that are just looking for a phone, something real basic, but that will allow them to have some of the communications that they do want to use. One of the cool things about the Federal Lifeline Assistance Program is that the phone that they do get is a smartphone now. It used to not be, it used to be an old flip phone, but a lot of them now, it is a smartphone, and they do have that 500 megabytes of data that they can use at no cost. And as I was looking through the programs, just making sure that I had updated and the quality information, a lot of those phones will run on wireless as well. And so if they're at a library, if they're at your place of employment, so if they're there and you guys have wireless, they go to a McDonald's, a Starbucks, anywhere that offers free wireless, they're also able to use the phone there at that time too. Throughout the presentation, one of the things I do want to let you know is if you go back and review the PowerPoint that's going to be uploaded, all of the logos for the names of the organizations are hyperlinked to go straight to their account, so you'll be able to go and see that information there as we move forward. A few other plans that you've never heard of. We want to go through a couple of those. I want to let you know that neither Family Houston or United Way of Greater Houston's Thrive, we're not supporting or sponsoring any of the plans here, and we also know we're not going to cover all of them. There are thousands of plans out there if you really start digging. I think it's also important from the coaching perspective to realize that it's not one plan or one program is best for each person. And so if this is a conversation that you are having with your clients, or you want to start having more with clients, go and give them 4 or 5 options that you find that people really like, and not trying to additionally and just always push people into one plan and program they have, because it's really going to be best for them to decide what they want to do. So a few options that are out there that I do want to take a few minutes to look at. Google Fi. So Google Fi is a fairly new carrier. It's a Google product that they're coming out with. It runs on multiple carrier networks and on Wi-Fi systems. So it's not linked to just one carrier or one program's towers or network. It runs on a lot of them. It is a build and pay as you go plan and program. So it costs $20 for the first line and $15 for any additional line that you add after that. And that gives you unlimited talk and text messaging. And then you sign up for $10 per gigabyte used for your data, but you only pay for the data that you use. So if I sign up myself with 3 gigabytes of data, that would be $20 for my line, $30 for my data, but that month I only use 1 gigabyte instead of 3, I will get a $20 refund on my bill. So my cell phone bill for that month is only going to be $30. Well, if I sign up, same situation, I sign up for a line, it's $20 for myself. I sign up to use 3 gigabytes of data and I use 3.5. Well, they still bill me at $10 per gigabyte, and so my cell phone bill for that month would be $55. And so I only pay for the data that you use, and so there is no rollover, there's no carryover, which a lot of the big plans have now. But instead, you pay for what you use, and if you prepay for some of the data and do not use it, you're going to get refund any of that you do not use per month. I had a client tell me about it. I've had about 3 or 4 individuals I know and clients I've worked with who've jumped on it. They say it's absolutely fantastic. It's saving them some money. The one downside to the Google Fi and the program that they have is that you have a very limited phone selection. There are a total of 3 phones that you can work with that are part of it. The new Google Pixel phone is one of them, and then there are 2 other phones that you can use with this program. Google does allow you to purchase the phone through their program on a monthly basis at a 0% interest charge. And the cheapest phone that they do have is $199, and then runs up to whatever the Google Pixel phone is running. So that's one. Another interesting plan out there is US Mobile. So US Mobile runs off T-Mobile networks, and so it's a fairly reliable, it's out there thing. And what's interesting is it's another roll your own plan, which basically means you purchase what you want to use, when you want to use it, and how much you want to use of what, and it continues to go up from there. So plans start as low as $9 a month. So you have an individual, they have a phone they want to use, and they barely want to use any of it. They're on Wi-Fi a lot. They don't shoot a lot of text. They don't talk a lot of things. They can get a quality phone. They're for $9 a month, but that program, or the $9 a month plan, does only get them 100 minutes, 100 texts, and 100 megabytes of data. So there's not a whole lot there. And then as you continually go up, the price will adjust. On the US Mobile site, there's a pretty good matrix to show you how much you pay for what you use, and each month it can be different. So anytime you see roll your own plan, that's a verbiage that each month your monthly bill is going to be dependent upon what you use. It's not going to be one flat rate throughout. And again, the picture that we have there with the 3 people, that is hyperlinked to US Mobile sites if you want to go back and look to see what that is there. Cricket. Cricket is owned by AT&T, runs on AT&T's network, and it is a prepaid phone plan. Cricket was one of the first prepaid phone plans around, and I know I have a lot of clients that use this. They like it a lot. As you move forward, the plans range from $30 to $70 a month, with plans starting, I believe, at the $40 level. If you enroll in an automatic deduct from your checking account, they'll actually go and give you a $5 credit. And so the cheapest plan right now is $30, but if you enroll in automatic bill pay out of a checking or savings account, the next plan is $35, and it can get you basically how much data you want to use is what you're paying for. But right now, for the $30 a month, you're going to have unlimited talk, unlimited text, and 1 gigabyte of data to use there. And another great thing about Cricket is that you do have a wide range of smartphones that you can use as you move forward on that program and that platform. Selectel Wireless. This was an interesting one that I did want to talk about, because instead of paying monthly, it is $100 a year for their basic plan. It runs on Verizon's network, and for that $100 a year, you have no data, but you do get 2,000 minutes and 2,000 text messages. This can be a great safety emergency phone, something that you just keep around, an extra phone in case something happens and you really need to talk to somebody. It is $100 a year, and it was a different approach to a wireless plan than a lot of that we see that was monthly bills. Well, on Selectel Wireless, you can increase those minutes and text messages per year, and the cost does come up, and so it's just a different way of looking at it. So I wanted to share that one with you all. The last one I want to go over really quickly is Total Wireless. Total Wireless runs on Verizon's network, and it starts at $35 a month. Total Wireless has been getting a lot of good press as being right now for getting unlimited talk and text, and you get 5 gigabytes of data right there as one of the best plans for alternative that out there. It works with any Verizon compatible phone. So if you already have a Verizon phone and you're working with this one here, Total's going to be another really great option with you. As I mentioned, these are just a few cell phone plans that are out there. We know that our clients are talking on the phone. We know that they have cell phones. We also know that communicating with them to see how they're doing, to follow up with them for reporting purposes, and also just to see how they're doing with our case management and our coaching program. We know that clients are changing phones often, and this is a consistent struggle that they have. Hopefully by looking at a few of these plans that we presented today and that has piqued your interest, and you're going to spend some time going to look what other plans are. I'm reminded of a client that I worked with who was trying to start a small business. And one thing that he wanted was a printer at home. He wanted a printer and a scanner. He was saving up money every month to do it. And about 4 months into his business, he had enough money to purchase this printer and scanner, and he got it. And so the next time we met, I said, how's it going? He said, I did not realize how much time I was spending going down to Kinko's to print something small, to scan something to send every single time. It's great that I can do it, and it's less costly, but just the stress of not having to plan that in my day is huge. I think that with our clients and with their cell phones, if we do see that they're consistently changing numbers, they're consistently having to change programs, number one, it could be cheaper for them to find a really good alternative plan that's something that fits in the budget. But I'm also reminded that client, just the stress of always having a consistent plan, that's one less thing off their plate so that they can focus on some of the other things that they have going on. So we wanted to share that with you there. Next, we want to take some time this morning and welcome Jorge Mendoza. Jorge Mendoza, he's the Thrive Counselor with Family Houston, and also he supports the United Way of Greater Houston's Thrive Collaborative. He's practicing as a licensed professional counselor intern, and he does bilingual counseling services. He has experiences providing crisis intervention and working with individuals, adults, and couples. He assists families and individuals in reaching their financial and personal goals. And he can be a support to anyone out there in the Thrive Network if you have questions or what it looks like. Again, I'm going to do a plug for the Thrive Connection Program and the presentations that they can do about emotional intelligence for your staff or for your team, also about self-care and also mental health red flags. And so what's the difference between a client that may be having some questions, may be thinking there's something going on, and also what is really happening and going on with them, and do they really need to seek out some professional help? And so with that, I'm going to turn it over and welcome Jorge. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing some information about emotional intelligence.
Thanks, Richard. So yeah, we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence today. Different types of SMART. I'm sure a lot of you have heard basically, all over LinkedIn how important emotional intelligence is and how it's necessary in the workplace, in your personal life. But it's such an abstract concept that oftentimes people don't really know how to implement it. So we're going to be going over the key definition of emotional intelligence, and then also focusing on the empathy component, because I feel that that's really where you can build that emotional intelligence. So you guys can see on your screen we have the standard definition. Emotional intelligence, a person's capability to identify and manage their own emotions and the emotions of others. So it is a multi-layered thing, and it seems pretty simple just from that definition, and yet there's some people that are naturally better at emotional intelligence just because they tend to focus more on feelings first, and other people who are a bit more logical may struggle a bit to get more in touch with their emotions or to identify the emotions of other people. But it is a skill that we can all develop with time. It just requires practice. And it's definitely useful in the workplace, working with a diverse population and all different colleagues and everything. A lot of times people think that emotional intelligence is nothing but emotions, but EI is not really the equivalent of kind of, the bleeding heart syndrome where, you feel for everyone in the world around you, and you're just overflowing with emotion. That's not what emotional intelligence is. It's not a gush of emotions. It's a mix of both emotion and thought and connection with other people. So we're going to be exploring that. And like Richard mentioned earlier in the slides, if you have any questions at the end of the presentation, feel free to ask them in the chat box, and I'll try to help you as best as I can. So emotional intelligence, you'll see a lot of different articles have different setups for how many components it has. Some have 3, 4, 5. I prefer the 3-tier model just because I personally enjoy triads more. But the 3 important components of emotional intelligence are emotional awareness, regulation, and then empathy. So emotional awareness is essentially being aware of your own emotions and why they are occurring. So again, the standard definition makes it look easy, but oftentimes the emotional identification aspect can be really difficult for people because they can understand maybe surface level emotions like I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm upset, but they have a harder time with complex emotions like jealousy or envy, irritation, frustration, especially trying to figure out where it's coming from, because I'm sure all of you have had days where you go into work or you come home from work and you're just kind of grouchy or in a bad mood, but you're not really sure why. Sometimes it's not that something very blatant happened at work or anything like that. So if you have kind of a limited emotional vocabulary, you're going to have a harder time identifying what the emotion is, if it's not one of those surface level emotions and maybe one of those deeper emotions, or the ones that are connected from one to another. For example, in my line of work, I often see a lot of clients that tend to be, very angry at life. And through exploration, they know that they're angry, and they can say, I'm furious that life is unjust, that it's unfair, that I have to struggle this way. But when it comes down to really exploring beneath that layer, what typically tends to occur beneath anger is sadness. Sadness that their life didn't turn out the way that they wanted. Sadness that they were betrayed by a partner, a friend, or that they had missed opportunities. And then underneath that sadness, there tends to be a grief for like the life that they feel was unlived, or the opportunities that they missed out on for a future that just may not be as possible now. So as you can see, it can always begin like a simple surface level thing such as anger, but then it can go on to sadness and grief and just deeper emotions. So emotional awareness can be very difficult for people to identify, but I typically tell the people that I present this presentation to, try to identify how you're feeling in the moment. You may be feeling intrigued, you may be even feel bored, but try to always dig what is underneath that. What is the second layer to that emotional, that emotion that you're feeling. So emotional regulation, the second component, is being able to manage your emotions and not let yourself be overwhelmed by them. So again, we think, oh, we're all functional adults, we all have jobs. Of course, we can all do this. But we've all had times where we're with that one client that just grinds your gears, and you just have to keep yourself in check. For those of us that maybe grew up with models that taught us how to regulate our emotions well and how to keep cool, keep calm, and just persevere through any kind of situation, then it may seem simple for us. But for people that didn't really have those models growing up, where maybe it's you live in a community that's much more reactionary, if you feel something, you just let it out. That emotional regulation piece can be a bit more difficult. Now, in this definition, excuse me, the manage part is the most important, because regulating your emotions doesn't mean that you're going to be in control of every time that they occur. Oftentimes, in fact, probably all the time, we're never in control as to what we're about to feel, but we can manage how we express it and how long we can stay in the emotion. So don't think about it as, oh, emotional regulation is emotional control. They're two separate things. Emotional control, you would basically be a robot, because we can't really shut our feelings on or off. There are people that can try to suppress their feelings or just try to hold back and then release it in private or anything like that. But regulating your emotions, it's much more fluid. It comes and goes in waves, where you may feel a surge of emotion, positive or negative. Again, it doesn't always have to be negative, but just not letting yourself be carried away by that emotional tide. So it's kind of like, imagine surfing on that wave and having like a pretty good balance, and not being caught in the tidal wave and then drowning in that emotion, because that's where we have this this deregulation, where it's just everything's going haywire, and we have no filter sometimes. And then the third component of EI, empathy, is really the key to the application of emotional intelligence in general, because empathy is really that connecting, driving force, where we put ourselves in another person's shoes, and where we can truly come to understand a better frame of mind of what the person may be thinking. So again, in this presentation, I am talking about emotional intelligence, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on empathy, just because the emotional awareness and regulation, that's more where you can do that solo work on yourself. Again, identifying where is this emotion coming from, what's underneath it, the regulating part, the managing your emotions, or even there are some people who, if you fall into emotional control, you try to suppress every emotion and you're not letting it actually get out. So there is a bit of personal development and emotional growth that's required in order to develop emotional intelligence. It is a soft skill, but it's not one that can be conquered very easily. Like you can't just practice EI for a week and say, oh, now I'm an expert in it, now I have perfect control. Again, that just doesn't happen. It's a constant practice, just kind of the same way that we practice all other soft skills in work. But again, I'm going to be focusing more on empathy. So when is emotional intelligence needed? So jobs that require a substantial interpersonal interaction component. So basically for all of us in the nonprofit world that work either with direct client interaction, or those of us who work as managers or supervisors or directors, essentially anytime that we're talking to another person, typically in the social services realm, we're going to need EI because, again, it is that driving force in order to better understand what the other person needs. So EI is also focused on being able to properly read facial expressions to understand, those micro expressions that people make. Because obviously, if someone's like very visibly upset, you're going to be able to tell, oh yeah, they're really upset. But maybe you may remember times when you're in a meeting and you guys are talking about something that not everyone agrees with, and maybe you were the person leading the meeting, and as you look around at the table and your colleagues, you can tell who's on board with what you're talking about, and you can tell the people who have reservations, and you can tell the people who are, they're hiding it, but they're really not on board, because even though they're not gonna wear their emotions on their sleeves, you can tell by the, are their eyes downcast? Are they making eye contact? Are they kind of shaking their head a little bit? Is their brow furrowed? Those kinds of things. Tones of voice as well. How do we carry our voice? There are some people that naturally speak much quieter, naturally speak much louder. But for those of us that are kind of exist in the middle, clients can often hone in when we are irritable, even if we're not irritable at them, which may make them feel a bit apprehensive as to whether or not they want to connect with us if they feel that we're on guard, even though it may have nothing to do with them. So being able to check that within yourself and to check the tone of voice that others are using, oftentimes also trying to recognize, is a tone of voice something where they're trying to hide something from me. This is, maybe if you're working more in the therapeutic field or case management, you're trying to collect a lot of data. And also reading body language, that nonverbal language. Do they have hunched shoulders, arms crossed? Again, are they not looking at you? Are they making too much eye contact? Are they trying to really impress you? Things of that nature. So again, the different fields that EI tends to be very successful in. Anything sales related, I mean, any car salesman, anytime you guys have bought a car, new, used, cash car, whatever it may be, the salesperson is reading you from the second you step on the lot, and they are trying to figure you out and just trying to hook you in. So they tend to need EI quite a bit. Management, again, all of you that are directors, supervisors, that sort of thing, you need to know what is my cohort morale look like? Are there things that I need to be attuned to make sure that my employees feel appreciated, that they feel productive, that they feel that their work is significant and valid? That way you can increase, job efficiency, prevent, turnover, all of those different kinds of things. Again, social services, obviously we are a big industry that utilizes EI just because of the very heavy client interaction, and because we're so client-centered and we care about really focusing, what are the client's needs, how can I best serve them, how can I help them. Healthcare, so this, your doctors, your nurses, therapeutic fields as well, trying to connect, your bedside manner, how are you treating the client, how can you best provide them services, all that. And customer service again, and I know a lot of our Thrive partners offer trainings in customer service, so I'm sure you guys are already familiar as to how important EI is needed in order to, regulate your emotions and being able to connect and defuse certain situations. So empathy versus sympathy, these are two terms that people tend to get confused quite a bit. Again, so empathy is putting yourself in another person's shoes, connecting with their frame of mind, with their emotional stance, all of that, whereas sympathy, it tends to be really more feeling sorry for another person or feelings of sorrow for another, kind of like, let's say you see a tragedy on the news. And unfortunately in the news we do often see, very tragic stories. And, it's someone that you don't know whatsoever. And let's say it's someone who, lost their family in a fire, and you feel terrible for them, and that's a natural human response. That alone is not bad, but that is a sympathetic response where you feel so bad that happened to them. Whereas empathy, it can be kind of that second reaction to sympathy at times if you know how to properly do it. Where some people take it a step further, and let's say they're seeing the same news scenario and they see the person who lost, their family in a fire, and yes, you have these feelings of sorrow with them, but then you kind of try to put yourself in their frame of mind. What must it have been like to see, all of their belongings, gone, all of their loved ones gone, and where you actually connect with the feeling, or kind of with a simile of what that feeling might have been like. That is more the empathic response. Now sympathy, just pure sympathy alone, the feelings of sorry for another person or feelings of sorrow, tend to be a driving force for disconnection. As you guys can see, the results part here on the slide is a hyperlink. I had a video there, but unfortunately because of the webinar, I can't show it to you guys, but you're all welcome to look it up. It's a Brene Brown video. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of her and her work on vulnerability, perfectionism, and emotional intelligence. She does a great job of better explaining, the difference between sympathy and empathy, but I'll summarize what she says. Essentially, sympathy is kind of more the driving force for disconnection, because if you only purely just feel sorry for another person, you're not connecting with them. It's more like a pity party where you're more distant from them, having feelings of pity for them from a distance, from like a safe distance, whereas empathy is really getting down in the trenches with the person and trying to understand their frame of mind. And there are situations where I'm sure all of you have had clients where they tell you a story or a life obstacle they're going through, and you say, wow, I have absolutely kind of nothing in my life history bank that is even anywhere on par with what they're going through. And we think, I really can't connect with them. And that's okay. Again, that's a natural human thing. It happens to me quite often in my line of work. But what I tend to do is I'm very upfront with my clients, and I say, I truly cannot imagine what you must be feeling or how you're handling all of this, but I'm here with you. I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I will do my best to help you. Sometimes just being present and not running from the emotional reaction that the client is having can be enough for them to feel heard and to feel that their feelings are being validated. And that can be really the driving force of connection and building rapport with your client, where they know I can share this part of my life with someone and I can feel safe in it. Because obviously that's something that is, it makes us feel all incredibly vulnerable. As we all know, it's not easy for our clients to come to us and say, I need help with utility assistance. I need help with declaring bankruptcy. I need help from financial coaching because I don't know what the system is. And they can feel a great sense of shame of sharing the story. But when we can stay present and offer this empathetic response of really, listening to them and giving them that space to present that emotion, then that can be really the driving force of connection. Whereas sympathy, if you're just like, man, that sucks, it just sucks to be you, that's, again, the feelings of sorrow may be genuine, but it doesn't really do anything to help the client. So yeah, on to the next slide. Let's see if I can get this to... Hey, Richard, can you try to move it for me? Thank you. So why do we need this for our clients? Again, this is a little bit of a repeat of what I have just spoken about, but obviously because we all work in social services and in a nonprofit world, we're going to see every type of client walk through our doors. So we're going to see large-scale diversity. That diversity can be cultural. Again, people of different cultural backgrounds, people from different countries. Like I know, for example, Alliance for Multicultural Services, they work with a largely diverse cultural populace. It can also be racial, religious, people of different faiths, economical as well. And people tend not to think as a person's socioeconomic status as a part of diversity. But if you were raised in a middle to high SES background, and SES stands for socioeconomic status, which is basically your financial standing and your social status in life, and you're working with a client that's, in the lower SES or extreme poverty end of the socioeconomic status spectrum, then you may try your best to help them, but if you're not really sure of how to connect with their different life experiences or how they view the world, then a lot of disconnection can occur, and that's where emotional intelligence can really play a key in, because again, like I said, there are times where we need our clients to educate us as to what their life experiences are, how they view things, how they process things, how they manage their emotions, all of that, and being able to connect with their emotions in that moment when they're sharing with us can be truly important. Diffusing high tension situations. So this is probably pretty necessary for a lot of our case managers that work in the Thrive Collaborative and just in the United Way in general. But oftentimes, I always hear these stories of clients coming in, almost in tears, just in crisis. I need help. I lost all my furniture in the recent floods that we've been having, or I need utility assistance, or I need to find the nearest food bank. And sometimes we in that moment, we can be caught off guard by how much they need us. And we can just be like, okay, let me just put a Band-Aid on this. Let me just give you whatever you want, and just like fling information at them. But that, it's understandable, again, a natural human reaction, but it doesn't really help diffuse the situation, because we don't want to give clients just a super quick fix all the time. We want to be able to get them to a space where they can calm down, where we can, again, identify and regulate whatever reactions we may be having to the client's story, identify what the client may be going through emotionally and logically as well, and also help them get to a space where we can say, okay, yes, this is incredibly urgent, but let's bring you down, let's lower you. That way we can calmly work this through. You're safe here. We got this. We're going to try our best to help you. But again, if you're purely on a logical approach, or you're just thinking, the client just needs to do X, Y, Z, and then their problem will be over, that may be true, but it's not going to build that connection again with the client. And what we often want, we want the clients to come back, because we want to see long-term progress for our clients, not always just, even though crisis management is perfect, but we don't want to just be constantly putting out fires. We want to make sure that the client is in a state where they can learn how to begin to prevent the fires or put out the fires themselves. That way, again, we can see that long-term progress, be it financial, life obstacle, or whatever. Again, rapport building, again, I keep saying that this is the most important part of emotional intelligence, is that connecting driving force. We don't want a person that's just going to nod their head at us, or a person that's just going to say, here's all of these pamphlets on programs, go sign up for them. We want to be heard. We want to feel validated, all of those types of things. And also clarity and goal setting. So again, oftentimes when clients come to us, we tend to think, oh, I can get just from the general surface of what they're saying that their goal must be X, Y, Z. But if we were to really connect with the clients through, that empathy aspect, we can get a better gauge, as instead of assuming what the client may need, but really understanding what are their goals, what are their necessities, what is it that they really want. Because oftentimes, the clients want something completely different than what we want for them. Even though both things may be good, but we may think on a larger scale, whereas the client says, that may be great, but I just need this right now. So emotional intelligence, again, can be that connecting force, so we can better understand where our clients are coming from and what it is that they need from us and how we can best serve them. So steps to building empathy. Again, I'm going to focus more on the empathy component of this presentation. So accepting clients as they are. In the clinical world, we call this the unconditional positive regard. That's just heavy jargon, but essentially using a non-judgmental approach to try to truly accept our clients in the life position that they are, whatever goals they may have, and whatever skills they may have with them at that moment. And this can be, it sounds simple from the get-go, but it's natural for humans to be judgmental of others, or to say, you need to focus on this first before you can do this. But to just, again, respect the client and know that we are there to help them, but we're also there to just follow whatever goals they have, as opposed to whatever our own personal goals may be. So that ties into, your expectations versus client expectations. Oftentimes, it's not about downsizing our expectations, just making sure that we first connect with whatever the client expectations are. That way we can show them that respect and that connecting force. And then once you build that rapport, you can start to, plant the seeds of future progress, where they can begin to think about more, either long-term trainings, for the workforce development or for financial coaching, what have you. But in the beginning, you have to respect where your client is. And that can be a little hard, because oftentimes, we, even though we love working with people, we do have these unconscious biases within us. When we see a client, we automatically think, oh, because you're lower income, you must have experienced these life obstacles, or you must struggle so much in this area. And even though you're trying to connect, you're also being quite demeaning with the client, because you're assuming that they've had this whole horrific life, and thinking that they may be unprepared to handle their life obstacles. And the truth is that they know how to take care of themselves. But again, when you don't connect with them, well, our assumptions can get the best of us. So the second point I have there, being right versus being relational. I've seen this, in talking to certain people, where they would mention to me, kind of a discussion that they had with a client, where they were trying to get the client to see, if you would just do this one thing, it would be so perfect for you. And the client was just resistant to it. And I would ask this individual that I was talking to, did you try to see, what is it that made the client hesitant to try this? What was the resistance coming from? Or were you just trying to push your values onto them? Were you trying to actually connect with them and say, I know it can be tough. Tell me more about what's going on through your head, through your heart. Is any of this making you nervous? Because oftentimes, I've seen even clients in my own sessions where I will suggest, one of our wonderful Thrive trainings to them, and they're like, no, I'm not ready for that. In fact, I have a client story that I just thought of. A client that if you were to hear her story, you would think, oh, she needs immediate financial coaching. And of course, that thought ran through my head when she was talking to me because she had a car title loan of about $5,000. And she had, no way of paying it, and the little bit that she was paying was not going to the principal, so she was just paying off the fees essentially. So she was, she fell into that title loan, payday loan entrapment cycle where she was pretty much stuck. So I was helping her with the emotional piece of managing that stress and everything, but I also recommended our financial coach. But she was and is still resistant to it. And at first I thought, well, she just doesn't want to do it. But then when I took the time to, ask her, what's going on? You've spoken to the financial coach before. Is there something that's making you a little bit nervous, possibly? Because again, I was reading her body language and I saw how she crossed her legs and she just felt like more sheepish when I brought up the financial coaching. And she disclosed to me that she was very ashamed of having taken out such a large car title loan and that she was caught in this bad financial situation. And even though she gets along great with our financial coach here at Family Houston, she was worried that she was going to disappoint him. And it was a natural reaction for her to have because obviously, it's very vulnerable to have to say, hey, I messed up. And I'm caught in a situation I don't really know how to get out of. And it's very difficult to ask for help. And we're still working through that because she still feels a great sense of shame, just personal shame for the car title loan. But I reiterate to her, our financial coaches, not just here at Family Houston, but, all throughout the Thrive Network, are non-judgmental and always want to do our best to help the clients, or at the least, educate them on what their financial rights are. But in connecting with her, I was able to see that it's shame and not just resistance alone that's preventing her from connecting with a financial coach at this moment. And I hope through still working with her that I will get her to the point where she can feel strong enough to make the appointment for herself. Because again, I want to respect her boundaries and make sure that she feels, validated and encouraged and strong enough to reach out for assistance. So again, that's the part where being relational with our clients can truly help. And I know, my case was more therapeutic, but that can happen with a lot of our case managers, a lot of our employment coaches, financial coaches, to really be able to see, is this pure client resistance where they are saying, no, I don't want to do this, and they're just digging their heels in, and you don't know why. But when you take the time to connect with them, you can see that they may be afraid to take a certain job training because they haven't disclosed to anyone that they have problems with literacy, or they may feel a sense of shame because of financial decisions they may have made, or they may feel overwhelmed by just such a lofty goal because they never thought it was possible for them. So again, when we're relational with people, we can truly begin to see what are the emotional blocks that prevent them from better taking part in our services or anything like that, and we can help guide them and coach them, whether you're therapy or whether you're just the coaching mentality, whatever, on both of our ends, we can help guide and coach our clients so that they can get to the point where they can make stronger and better decisions for themselves. So the third point here, practice active empathetic listening. So active listening, I'm sure we've all heard about it. It's one of our soft skills. But again, it is quite hard because oftentimes when we listen to people, it can either be in one ear, out the other, or we listen when it's only important to us, when actually to practice active listening, you have to be aware, what is the person saying to me? What is their tone? What's the real message they're trying to get across? Because oftentimes when people talk to you, and especially clients, they'll tell you one thing, but there's kind of a hidden message underneath what they're saying. Kind of like with the client story that I told you guys about, she was telling me, no, I don't want to see the financial coach, but I felt, that sense of nervousness beneath that statement, and that's how I was able to pick up via listening to her and connecting with her nonverbal body language, what it was that was going on. So, to practice active listening, again, you learn to hold back on what you say, because oftentimes when clients, tell us these things are going on in their life, we just want to jump right in and say, oh, I have this great program for you. I have this great job training or this financial service, that we can provide you, blah, blah, blah. But what happens is we cut them off, and we become so enthusiastic about helping the client that, again, in cutting them off, we don't get to hear the whole story, and then the client feels, oh, okay, well, I'll do. They'll just, they'll nod their head and they'll go along with whatever you're saying. But if you're not connecting with them, they may not actually follow through. So for active listening, I would ask all of you to explore on your own individually, when is this hard for you? Because obviously, when we're in a good mood, we can practice active listening for as long as we want. Is active listening difficult for you after the lunch break? Because we all have, that little, lunch coma that we get around 2 or 3 o'clock. And let's say you have, your most difficult clients at the time, and you're like, oh man, I'm not sure if I can really connect with them. Is it harder for you when you're grouchy in the morning before you have your coffee? Is it more difficult just in different times of the day? That way you can know if you have the ability to allocate clients at a specific time. Let me put my more, maybe not challenging, but maybe the ones that I have to pay extra attention to, those clients at different parts of the day where I can better provide them services. Or again, that can also be the time where you can begin to practice, what can I do for myself to alleviate whatever emotional distress I may have going on in order to practice more empathetic listening. So again, I would say for all of you, just identify when is this hard for you, and then set up a little action plan for what you can do to begin improving those areas for yourself, or to begin allocating, different job tasks at specific times of day. That's more of a time management thing. So, when you're most productive, when you're most efficient, and also when you can connect the best with people. So continuing on steps to building empathy, cognitive empathy here. Now, cognitive empathy is a bit of a double-edged sword. The first time I did this presentation, I kind of spoke about it more from the negative trait of it, but I want to give both sides to it because, I feel you all deserve that. So cognitive empathy is really when you, it's really more perspective taking, and it's not what most of us would consider as empathy at all. So cognitive empathy is basically being able to put yourself in someone else's place and see their perspective. Now, again, that sounds like just the standard definition I gave you guys at the beginning, but the cognitive piece is what makes it different. So cognitive empathy is when you're able to more logically identify and assume this is what this person's reaction is, and how should I manage it? But you're not actually connecting with the emotion piece that the client is presenting. So cognitive empathy is more like that logical kind. So yeah, cognitive empathy is more that logical kind. So you want to make sure that it's a good building block to building empathy, because for those of you that may focus more on just the logistical side of how can I connect up here in my head how the client is doing, that's great. But if the emotion is not behind it, what tends to happen is you're not going to fully connect with them, and it can become more of a sense of manipulation, because when we don't have that emotional piece, we're not actually connecting with them. So people can tend to use cognitive empathy to manipulate people at times. So it's always important to have that emotional piece there. So again, cognitive empathy is a great building block to the emotional side to begin with the logical, but you always want to connect with the emotion. So paying attention to nonverbal language, again, you want to make sure, how is the client doing? How are they reacting to certain things? That way you can see, what are they not telling me? Sharing in the joy of others. So empathy is not always about negative responses, negative emotions. So we tend to think, oh, if it's empathy, I have to be connecting with some negative emotion. That's not the case whatsoever. You want to make sure that you share in the positive experiences. If a coworker of yours gets a promotion, how can I best, be happy for them instead of maybe feeling envy, even though we may actually feel it. But finding, positive traits to empathize with, because what tends to happen is all we do is empathize with negative emotions. We can get burnt out emotionally because it can be too overwhelming. So we want to focus on empathic responses where we're connecting both logically and emotionally, and then actually helping the client take action. It's that action piece that really drives the client change, where we can truly provide the best services for the clients. Now, thoughts versus emotions, again, I know we're running a bit out of time, so I'm going to go over this a bit quickly, but you're free to contact me later if you have any questions. thoughts versus emotions, it's not a fight, really, between the two. People think, again, emotional intelligence is just pure emotion, and there are people that are just purely thought-driven that think, no, logic and reason is the answer. It is a combination of both. The same thing that we hear with diversity, where we want to deal with intersectionality, which means different groups working all together. Thoughts and emotions should go hand in hand. There are those of us who are more logic-driven and those of us who are more emotional-driven. But we need both skills, both calm logic and that more heartfelt emotional piece working side by side so that we're not overwhelmed and so we know how to connect with the client but also perform our jobs adequately. Finding that balance is a constant state of practice and pursuit. I myself am still working on balancing that out. If you ever meet someone that says, oh no, I can balance everything out perfectly, they are either lying to you or they're lying to themselves. This is the thing that it's constantly, you're trying to juggle the two in equilibrium. So let's move on to the next slide real quick. Let's see if I can move it. Hey, Richard, could you try moving the slide for me? And, oh wait, there we go. So more roadblocks to EI. Let me go back real quick just so you guys can see that last slide. If you could, Richard, go back one slide. No, go back. Roadblocks to EI. So perfectionism or mastery. So perfectionism is the big roadblock to vulnerability. It is the big roadblock to empathy and to emotional connection. Because what people try to do, and I've actually met people in my personal life that have tried to perfect vulnerability. They've tried to perfect emotional intelligence and just be the best at it. And they may call it perfectionism, or they may say mastery, because mastery tends to be a more socially acceptable term of how we can be perfect at something. But perfectionism is really just, it's that idea that if I'm good enough, if I'm smart enough, if I'm fast enough, good looking enough, I'll make enough money, then nothing can hurt me, and I'm going to be prepared for every single situation. That is not vulnerability. That is you being on your defense. Emotional intelligence is hard because it requires that level of vulnerability. You have to be able to put a bit of yourself at risk. So again, abandon the idea that you're going to be a master or a complete expert on emotional intelligence, because that is just you trying to, again, protect yourself in a way so that you're always prepared for whatever situation may occur. It's okay to be not prepared for everything. Again, EI is something that we constantly develop. So the second point, not paying attention to what is going on around you. Oftentimes, we have clients that, we have them back to back, and we start to fade out. We want to make sure that you're connected in a way where you can, take like a quick 2-5 minute breather and then dive back into your work so you can be fresh and connect with other people. Stereotyping, again, these are the assumptions that we tend to fall into where we're not fully accepting the client as they are. We tend to automatically assume, be it for their economic status or their racial status or religious status, that they are going to act or behave a certain way that can be quite judgmental of us. And some people do it consciously, which is, quite terrible. And there are people that do it unconsciously, and we are all truly guilty of that because, again, we all have these unconscious biases within us. And the judging, again, the holier than thou trait. People tend to think that because we're the ones behind the desk and not sitting in the client chair that, oh, we know better or whatnot. That can be a real roadblock to EI, again, because if you think of yourself as a step above a client, even though your positions in life may be different, that does not make you superior to another person, because what you're doing is you're looking down on a person, and you can't really connect with a person when you see them as a notch beneath you. So watch out for that. Self-empathy, again. Can you understand others without understanding yourself? A big part of EI is, again, personal exploration and personal growth of your own emotional awareness and regulation and empathic responses. So self-awareness is key. There are a lot of people that this takes a lot of time, a lot of exploration. Some people come into therapy because they want to explore more or because they have a life obstacle they can't explore. Again, therapy doesn't have to be the first thing that you rush to, but talking to your close loved ones to figure out what's going on in your life, in your world, and what's going on within yourself. That way, when you can manage yourself better, you can better be prepared to connect with other people. So that is I believe that is our last slide. Richard, if you have any questions, I know I had to wrap it up a bit at the end for time's sake, but feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat box, and I'll do my best to answer them.
And thank you so much, Jorge, for spending some time with us this morning and going over EI. As he mentioned, emotional intelligence, people are looking at it when they're hiring. People are looking at that when there's issues there with getting along with the other kids in the sandbox, when they're looking at people who are getting fired. We're looking at this as we're dealing with clients who have stressful, difficult situations. So I do appreciate you taking time and just reviewing some overview of what emotional intelligence is, how to work, and maybe some steps and some barriers as we get there. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to either type those either in the question box or the chat box at this time. You can ask them. In addition, if you do have questions that you think about or want additional information later on, please feel free to either reach out to myself, to Jorge, to United Way Thrive, and we can definitely get you some information and some resources there. Somebody did ask if we could repeat or spell the name of the Brown video, and it is the video is from Brene Brown. Again, this video, the webinar, and also the PowerPoint will be loaded onto the Thrive portal. And the hyperlink to the video is in here too.
Yeah, exactly. And also for you guys just doing a quick Google search, it is just Brene Brown, like Renee, but with a B in the beginning, sympathy versus empathy. Quick Google search, and it should be the first link that pops up.
Excellent. We have one question asking, will the slides be available via email? Yeah, we'll have them on the Thrive portal for you, and so they're easily to be able to go and access them there. If you have any issues getting on the Thrive portal, please let me know, and I can definitely help with that and make sure you get those in there. So thank you for asking. With that being said, again, if you do have follow-up questions, please let us know as we're moving forward. A few important dates that are coming up is the reports here are due on January 27th, so we know that that is coming up here pretty soon. Also, we're excited about our quarterly meeting, which will be on Tuesday, February 21st from 8:30 to 11:30. And so expect to be getting some more information about the quarterly meeting, and we're looking at there. The last thing that we do have for you, we do always want to share the contact information. And so if you do have questions, you are looking to get a hold of us, there's my information there at the top. Faith from United Way Thrive. Rushka is still working with us as an independent consultant. Tanya Hill-Williams, who is our great 211. She's with the United Way and Texas Helpline, but she's also our Thrive expert there. And then if you have questions about reporting too, you can reach out to Jessica Puchel as a working partner. So I do not see any more questions coming in. We do appreciate your time this morning and hope some information here about emotional intelligence and some cell phone plans got us thinking about how we can continue to better work with our clients and serve them. Thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you all have a fantastic Tuesday.